with us. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Lauren from Second Star to the Right in Denver, Colorado, and we are so excited to be here with you today with a very, very special all-day event with tons of great panels, amazing authors. This is going to be amazing. We're really excited to work with our local chapter. I believe it's called the Rocky Mountain chapter of SCBWI. I see some head nods. I like that. I got it right. All right. Of SCBWI. And they are here today to celebrate their books that were released this year, which, as we all know, has not been a great year. There's been a lot going on. Maybe you haven't noticed. Maybe you have. So we want to take today to be joyful, to celebrate, and to celebrate these amazing books in the way that they deserve. If we can't be in person, at least we can do it virtually. So please join me in a virtual round of applause for all of our panelists at the very end, once I introduce everyone. So this is our first panel of the day. It's our picture book panel, which we at the bookstore absolutely love. Picture books are amazing. We love them all, but especially for the children. So on this panel today, we have Anna Crespo, AJ Irving, Carmela Coyle, Jolene Gutierrez, and Dow Phumiruk. So please join me in a virtual round of applause for all of our authors. All right, so Dow, let's start with you. Do you want to just introduce your book to us real quick?
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could be here today with us. I have One Girl that's written by Andrea Beatty, and I am the illustrator that came out last month, and I'm very excited to share about this book with everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, Dow, so much. Jolene, do you want to introduce your book to us?
Yes, and I'm going to throw in a bonus book. So I have my book, Mac and Cheese and the Personal Space Invader, that's illustrated by Heather Bell, who I believe is with us right now too. This is my picture book, and I have a nonfiction middle grade book, Bionic Beasts, Saving Animal Lives with Artificial Flippers, Legs, and Beaks as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Jolene. Carmela, you're up next. What book do you have to celebrate?
Hi, good morning. I'm really excited to be here. I have today, Can Princesses Become Astronauts? The 10th in the series, illustrated by Mike Gordon, who did the entire series, of course, and we're both delighted to be here, even though he's not.
Thank you, Carmela. AJ Irving, you are up next.
Hi, everyone. I'm AJ Irving. This is my debut picture book, Dance Like a Leaf, illustrated by Claudia Navarro, published by Barefoot Books, and it came out in August. Excited to talk more about it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ. And last but not least, Anna Crespo, what book do you have today?
Sure. I have Lee and Louise, and thank you so much for having us here, Lauren. But I have Lee and Louise, Who Has More, which is illustrated by Giovanna Medeiros and published by Charles Bridge, and it's part of the Storytelling Math series.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So thank you all for being here with us today. We're so excited to celebrate with you. As you know, we love SCBWI. We love working with local authors, and we are so, so excited to get to share these books today and celebrate with you. So just a little bit of information for the audience, how this is going to work. We will be asking questions of the panelists. I'll call on panelists so that it's not that really awkward thing that happens where no one talks and then everyone talks. And we'll go through as many questions as we have time for before our little secret surprise at the end. So our first question for all of our panelists today is, what inspired you to write your book? And Dow, I'm going to start with you again.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lauren. What inspired me to illustrate this book? Wow. Well, Andrea Beatty is the author, and she's a New York Times bestselling author of the Questionnaire series. So when I heard that she wanted me to illustrate the book, I couldn't say no. So the inspiration was instant. And she was inspired by watching a documentary called Girl Rising. And this show called attention to over 130 million girls all over the world who don't have access to education. So when I read about that, I couldn't say no.
That is wonderful. So, and thank you for correcting that too.
Oh,
I'm
that's
reading
okay.
just from the book. All right, Jolene, next up, what inspired you?
So for Mac and Cheese and the Personal Space Invader, I teach at school for kids, for diverse learners, which means we see kids with all kinds of learning differences. Personal space is an issue there, as it is everywhere. So, and my own daughter struggled with that, as well as some friendship skills. So I wanted to address that through the lens of a child who was observing some guinea pigs and seeing how they interacted and how they cuddled. And he thought that would be a great way to make friends. Turns out it's not such a great way to make friends.
That is such a great lesson that is needed everywhere. Thank you, Jolene. Carmela, you are up next. What inspired you?
Well, yeah, I love this question because my books, it being a series, it was a natural progression. It sort of just became, Can Princesses Become Astronauts? It was like her next thing that she needed to ask. Over the years, the princesses asked, do they skirt their knees? Do princesses make happy campers? Do they, hit the trails? And so there's a variety of these titles. So to move on to something sort of bigger, but also a natural kinds of little questions that children ask, and specifically this little princess. So this is a 2019 title, so I'm really delighted to be here. But I had to show this because this is a 2020 title, which is the Spanish edition. And that I just actually got this in the mail. So that was really fun to have show up one day.
That's awesome. Thank you, Carmela.
Mhm.
All right, AJ, you are up next.
Well, my relationship with my grandma inspired me to write Dance Like a Leaf. We were very close. I visited her in Montana every summer while I was growing up. We were also pen pals, and the last letter that I wrote her was the inspiration to write the book. Autumn was her favorite season, and the story starts in the fall and goes through the seasons. It's also a reflection on the seasons of life. My grandma passed away from Alzheimer's in 2014, and her lifelong dream was to be a published author. So I dedicated the book to her. And I just really wanted to write a grief book for kids that focused on the beauty of memories and carrying on traditions.
That is so beautiful. Thank you, AJ. All right, Anna, what inspired you to write your book?
Hi. So actually, this was the very first book that I wrote that is based on a prompt instead of based on an idea that I came up with out of nowhere. I met my editor during a conference, and she mentioned that Charles Bridge was putting together a series called Storytelling Math, which is a series that celebrates math, diversity, and the power of storytelling. And they were working with math specialists at Turk, a STEM educational nonprofit. So they had very specific guidelines for what they wanted in the books. But still, they wanted the books to be focused on the story rather than the math itself. They wanted the math to be to carry the plot, but the book to be focused on the story, to have a storyline. And they wanted the books to show diverse kids doing everyday math. And so they sent me the call for submission, and I was trying to figure out, and what I did was really try to think of memories from my childhood. And eventually I came up with this one question my parents used to ask me: what weighs more, a kilo of cotton or a kilo of lead? And I know it's very weird for Americans sometimes to think, okay, lead, what child knows what lead is? But in Brazil, we're always comparing something that is very heavy to lead. And so children might not know what it is, but they understand that it's very heavy. And cotton, of course, isn't. So cotton occupies a lot more space than lead does, but lead is still heavier. So that it was really the question that inspired the story. And it was only a matter of picking up the perfect food items to substitute the cotton and the lad and make it a very authentic Brazilian American story. So that's how it came about.
That's wonderful. And actually, we are going to reverse order, Anna. So I'm going to start with you. My brain can't jump around, so it'll pretty much be like back and forth. And our next question is for you, for everyone, but you'll start us off, Anna. What was the most challenging part of writing a picture book?
So I am actually curious to find out what Dow will answer, because Dow is an illustrator. But because I am not an illustrator, the hardest part is always finding the balance between what words will say and what the illustrations are supposed to say. I am a very visual person, so I visualize the book, but of course, I am not the one who is illustrating it, right? That reminds me, when I was a teenager, I always had this perfect dress in my mind, but I could not ever find it because I wasn't the one making it, right? And so I feel a little bit like that about illustrations. And so it's hard because while the manuscript is yours, the book is not. The book belongs to both you and the illustrator, and the illustrator has their voice as well. So that is always the hardest part, in my opinion, is that I have those illustrations in my mind, but I have to learn to and I worry, right? I worry that maybe an important part of the story will be left untold because I didn't mention it in an illustration note or something. But you have to learn how to let it go and let the illustrator put in their own voices. And I can say that I have never regretted letting it go. And I actually have a book that is coming out next year with Dow, and it's gorgeous. And that's because Dow really put her voice into it, and I could never have imagined what she illustrated. So yeah, so that's the hardest part, though, still.
That definitely makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
AJ, what was the hardest part for you for writing your book?
Well, I agree. I agree with everything that she just said. For me, it's execution, because there's so many elements that have to be executed exceptionally in order for a picture book to work. You know, a great concept isn't enough. Gorgeous writing isn't enough. If you're a text-only author like me, like she was saying, you have to leave room for the art. You also have to consider, you know, character and story arc and pacing and page turns. And you have to do all of this in so few words. And I think that there's a misconception that picture books are easier to write because they're shorter. They're really hard, in my opinion, and it really is magical when all those components come together and it works.
Awesome. Thank you, AJ. Carmela, you are up next. What was the hardest part for you?
Well, I relate to both of those, and I'm sure I'm going to relate to everybody else's as well. So it's more like putting it in order of which might be considered the most challenging. For me, I think at the top of my list remains the jumping off place, the diving place, where so you're on the edge of like almost like imagine cliff diving into a beautiful, clear Caribbean Sea with, you know, to snorkel or something down below, and you just don't know which what you're going to hit when you get down there. And I also liken it to sliding doors, and I don't know if anybody ever saw the movie Sliding Doors, where yeah, it's like that. It's like these other realities where you could take this idea and you can go so many different directions with it, and you're perplexed as the writer with, okay, which is the best, which is the most intriguing, what is the one that will resonate with children the most? And so you're kind of left with you got to make a decision at some point. And so I think that has always been my place with it, is which is the one, because I get all these ideas of how I could take it, but they're quite diverse and different, even in picture book form, they're diverse. And so I think that is mine. Yeah.
That definitely makes sense. First step is always the hardest, right?
Mhm.
All right, Jolene, you are up next. What was the hardest part for you?
Wow. Well, I absolutely connect with everything that everyone has said. And yeah, leaving space for the illustrator, as was mentioned, is something that is always, always on my mind. Making sure I'm not wasting any of that precious word count describing something that can be left for the illustrator to show, right? And trying to make sure I'm approaching everything in a kid-friendly way. I know this isn't specifically picture book-y because this is the middle grade nonfiction book, but with the research, because so much has been said about the picture books, I'm just going to go here for a second. With the research that I did here, there was first of all, so much. So deciding what is important to include within the book, right? And then how to frame it in a way that would be kid-friendly and approachable for them. So just kind of always keeping ourselves in that kid mindset as best we can.
Yes, which can get so hard as you get older, can't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last but not least, Dow, what was the hardest part for you in illustrating picture book?
But I thought I might make a comment on writing too. I'm so amazed at all the picture book authors that are out there. I know I'm one too, but for me, it does not come naturally. I feel like having just those limited words and having to rearrange them just right, it's just so difficult for me to do. I have lots of ideas. I just don't have the story arcs. And that's when I have to really sit down and think it through. As far as illustrating this book, wow, the problem was, like Carmela said, so many possibilities. The text in this book is very sparse. It's more like a poem, and it's so beautifully written by Andrea. And I had to honor those words, but I could go into almost any direction. And I guess in the end, it was good to think of the book as opening doors and possibilities for all children to read and explore. So my art I just threw it all in there. So there's a lot of sparkly and details about what things they could do when they grow up based on her text. And I just hope it opens doors for everyone. It was hard.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, on the flip side, our next question is, what was your favorite or most memorable part of working on this book? And AJ, why don't we start with you for this one?
Sure. It was definitely seeing Claudia Navarro's art for the first time. You guys, I cried. My husband cried. He said to me, I've read this story so many times, but it's different with the art. He said, you're going to touch so many hearts with this book. And it's kind of interesting because the very first illustrator that my publisher chose didn't have the right vibe for the book. So I'm really grateful that Claudia illustrated it because she brought so much to the story with her art. And my favorite thing that she added was a multi-generational household layer that wasn't in the text. Just perfect. So beautiful.
That's awesome. Thank you. And that actually goes along with what we were just saying about leaving room for that artwork. That's wonderful. Carmela, what about you? What was the most memorable part or your favorite part?
Oh, yeah, there's just so many favorite parts. So I think I'll show it. It's seeing the cover for the first time for me. Artwork, because a lot of times I just see the sketches, and so I'm not seeing the fullness of the spreads. And sometimes the cover will pop in sooner. So this was the original cover. And Mike Gordon and I absolutely love, he's the illustrator. We just absolutely love this because it summed up her vision, the whole entire series. And we lobbied for it because even though it came in as the first cover, it didn't become the cover. And so that's why we at least were able to negotiate. Can it be the back cover? So it became the back cover. So this is what they ultimately came up with for the cover, which I adore as well. But what the publishers were looking for was action. they wanted some sort of action for this first, the first impression that you get with it. And this was this for Mike and I was more of a just something that summed up her wondering throughout this entire series about herself and about, I was hoping, of course, that other girls and boys would relate to how this thinking process goes, because it's all the storybooks are all Q&A. So that really did it for us. We were seeing back and front cover.
That's so awesome. Thank you, Carmela. Anna, what about you? What was your favorite or most memorable part?
So this book only has approximately 200 words, and so it's hard to imagine that there was so much behind the scenes work to make this book work. How many words can I add to one sentence? All right, how many have I said already? So anyway, but it was a lot of work to get this book done. And basically because we wanted it to be mathematically accurate. So my favorite part was not driving to Denver, but actually purchasing the Brazilian snacks at the Denver Brazilian store and coming back home and weighing and measuring all of them, which I did. And of course, eating them. That was the favorite part of all. But yes, but it is surprising to think about the fact that we did that. We weighed the coxinhas de galinha, which is one, I actually have one here, which is one of the snacks that are shown in the book. We weighed each one of the biscoito de polvilho, which is the other snack. We did a lot of calculations so that we knew exactly what the character needed to do in order to come up with a right solution to the question and to the end of the book. And so anyway, but my favorite part was really eating them. And I am very glad that I wrote this book about these snacks, because as you can see, I went there again to purchase more snacks, right? Because I have to show what they look like. So this, I think this is all is like a gift that will keep giving. That's what it is.
It's delicious. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dow, what about you? What was your favorite or most memorable part?
For me, the most memorable part was working with Andrea Beatty. That goes without saying. But the favorite part is drawing all the sparkly, magical, glowy things. And I have to show you my favorite spread, because it was with guidance that it became this way. It's at the very end of the book, and it's showing sparks of light and each spark is a book, and they're going all over the world. But when I first drew it, it kind of looked like a 5G network commercial. But with the editor's guidance, we got it to look more like just a beautiful glowy world and lighting up the whole world. That one really touches me, and I'm so glad that I had the collaboration with the astute editors to make that happen.
Beautiful. Thank you. We love all things sparkly. Awesome. And Jolene, how about you? What was your favorite part or most memorable?
Well, kind of echoing again what others have said, seeing the artwork. So I try really hard when I'm writing not to visualize too much or too hard, because I don't want to be disappointed, if that makes sense. So as the writer, that's my job. I'm writing. I don't want these expectations that might go differently depending on who illustrates my story, right? But still, these images form in our heads. And so I had my main character, Oliver, and his teacher, sorry, I'm flipping through, his teacher, Ms. Lopez. And the first time I saw the character sketches that Heather Bell had created of them, it was like she had gone inside my head and plucked them out, even though I had tried so hard not to visualize these people. So that was kind of my favorite part. It was this feeling of this is really real, and my words are becoming like bigger with her images. It was so beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jolene. Our next question, because we are working with SCBWI authors, our local Rocky Mountain chapter, and we love, love, love working with SCBWI. It's such an amazing group of people, authors, illustrators, just our kind of people. And so our next question that we have for the group is, how has the SCBWI community influenced your writing, especially this latest release? And Jolene, I'm going to just reverse order and start with you because that's easy.
Okay. So I have been a member of SCBWI for 12 years and attended their conferences. They are just such an amazing community, and I think others are going to say similar things as it comes their turn to talk. But writing is tough. You're kind of in your own head, in your own space, and having a supportive community is just crucial. It can be a very long haul, like it was in my case. And so just having others there kind of lifting you up, cheering you on, being there with you. And then now, like, celebrations like this, this is just beautiful. So it's all about the community. They've always been there to support and share information and cheer us on. And I'm just so grateful.
Yes, absolutely. One of the most supportive communities I've ever met. All right, Dow, how about you? How have you been influenced by SCBWI?
I have to say that SCBWI essentially changed my life because I wasn't in the creative world at all until I joined. I was working solo, had no artist friends. So when I joined in 2011, it opened my eyes to so many new things, including how to really draw anatomy accurately, from Adam Rex, who came to our Letters and Lines conference for the first one that I went to. So very responsible for all of my publications and everything that I've gone through. And now I'm the co-regional advisor for our chapter. And that's so that I can help give back to our community.
That's amazing. Thank you, Dow, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anna, how about you? How have you been influenced?
Well, my story is similar. So aside from all the learning and all the support from the SCBWI community, all the manuscripts I sold, except for this one actually, were due to critiques that I received during SCBWI conferences. And I also met my agent during an SCBWI conference. And if it weren't for her suggestion, I would never have met the editor of Lee and Louise, who has more. So really, all the books that I have sold are somehow connected to SCBWI. And so I am very, very thankful that I discovered SCBWI. I found out about it. It was September of 2012, just like a week before the conference that year. So I was able to sign up and go to the first conference and learn that I didn't know anything, and just start learning from there with all the resources that SCBWI provides. So I am very, very thankful to them.
Well, what a great story. Thank you, Anna. And Carmela, how about you?
Well, I recall the first SCBWI conference that I went to. It was a long time ago. I was unpublished at the time, or pre-published at the time. And I remember walking in feeling very timid about this. There was a big conference center somewhere. It's not where we have them now. And I spent that whole conference being very nervous about the whole thing. And I remember listening to a talk given by Denise Vega and another one by Claudia Mills. And I was so impressed with them. And I left that not feeling any less timid, unfortunately. But some years later, a few years later, a couple years probably, I went to my first conference again, or my second conference, and I felt more like integrated to it all. And then from then on, I just, every single conference, there's some tidbit, some gem, jewel that I pull away, or many that I pull away from each one of them. The talks are always top notch. And so it was just this, it's been a great experience. And I have to say, fast forward, that Denise Vega is my critique partner group now. And which, you know, back then I would have been like, are you kidding me? That's going to happen. And I'd like to call Claudia Mills my friend. So it's been a terrific experience.
It's amazing. Thank you, Carmela. And AJ, how about you? How has it influenced you?
Well, I have so much in common with all of these ladies. Definitely influenced me from the beginning of my journey, but I guess I'll fast forward so I could talk about something a little bit different. I really struggled with creating during the pandemic, and SCBWI started offering these free webinars, which really helped me to stay motivated and inspired. And they also did the big summer conference online. I've never been able to go to one of the LA or New York conferences. That's a dream of mine. But the online conference was just amazing, amazing, amazing. In terms of Dance Like a Leaf, it was actually one of the fastest manuscripts that I've ever written. I sent it off to my critique partners and my mentor, and then I just set it aside. I didn't query agents with it because I felt that it was too quiet. So I never expected it to be my debut book.
Awesome. Thank you. So wonderful. All right. And our last panel question that we have today is, do you have a favorite line, character, or drawing from your book? And for this question, I'm going to start with you, Carmela.
Okay. Well, that's a toughie, right? Everybody's going to agree with that one. It's so hard to pull out. I guess I love these, what I call power thoughts that got into the book. And I'm going to mention these because they kind of sum it up. They sum it up. I keep saying it all is summed up, but she's sitting on a hill. And they're all different, the cloud, whatever's in the cloud. She's sitting on a hill and she's coming up with these, just musing about all possibilities. And so the front and back wallpapers, they're all, the back side is the flip side then, where she's on, sorry, I'm trying to find my right. She's on this side and she's asking, or not asking, but she's thinking about these things. And so I call them power thoughts, and I love them because they just, I knew they were going to happen from the beginning of this book. They had to be, to me, that it had to be, we had to leave these little signature things on there that would perhaps stimulate other little people to think about what's their power thoughts, or what could they take away from this book. We always had a takeaway in all the books of some sort. And so that was, this to me was my ultimate takeaway. So there, and then there's just lovely illustrations. I can't begin to pull out the others, but yes, the power thoughts.
It's so hard to pick favorites. I know.
Oh,
Fair
yeah.
question.
It's like your favorite children.
Thank you so much, Carmela. Jolene, how about you?
I have a page I prepared. So this page is one of my favorites. I love in Mac and Cheese, Oliver has a notebook. He has a very scientific mind, and he sketches the things that he sees in the world around him. And so that's, he created sketches of Mac and Cheese. And when he saw Mac and Cheese cuddling, that was his inspiration for like, oh, this is how I can be a friend. So he, in his notebook, relabels his Mac and Cheese to himself, Oliver, and Pedro, and he gives Mac some glasses and Cheese some hair like Pedro. So I love the way Heather captured Oliver's drawings. I love Mac and Cheese, and they are kind of sprinkled throughout the book, doing silly little things like stealing carrot sticks and drawing with chalk and things like that. So I just love the sense of play and fun that Heather brought to the book. It's just gorgeous. I'm going to show you the last spread too really quickly, because they visit the zoo and we get to see Oliver's notes and the things he's observing and the social skills he's learning through his observations of these animals now. So she just did such a beautiful job. Yeah.
Those are beautiful. Thank you, Jolene. All right, AJ, you're up next. Do you have a favorite?
Well, my favorite spread in the book is wordless, and it was my editor's idea to have a wordless spread right before the final page. And what Claudia did with that wordless spread just really blew me away, because it's so perfect and powerful, and it really captures the whole heart of the book in one image. It's the girl dancing, and now her grandma is gone, but she's made out of leaves. It's just incredible. It's beautiful. I love it.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. All right, next up, Dow, do you have a favorite?
I have showed you the favorite spread illustration-wise, so I'll read some text to you that I love that Andrea wrote. Words like comets through the night, blazing streaks of blinding light, seeking out the darkest dark to bring one girl, one shining spark. And that leads to that illustration, the world glowing. And that just gives me goosebumps sometimes. So I love that. But boy, all the books today have had so many wonderful points, and I love your favorites too.
Thank you, Dow. That's so awesome. I love now hearing the text connected with that. Beautiful. And last but not least, Anna, do you have a favorite?
I do have a favorite. So I love Leah's determination in the story. She's really determined that she's going to find an answer. And so my favorite page is, let me get to it, is the one in which she actually finds a solution. And so it shows her very patiently thinking about it, and suddenly, I'm sure it has happened to all of us, it suddenly clicks. And I love her expression when it clicks. I think Giovanna did an amazing job. So this is certainly my favorite page, although I also really, really love the page of the Brazilian bakery, because Giovanna is also Brazilian, and so she knew perfectly well what to include in a Brazilian bakery. So all the little details that you see here are things like the pudim de leite, the brigadeiro, the coxinhas, the risoles, all of that stuff are things that you would find in a Brazilian bakery. So I really like the authenticity that she added to the story. Yeah. So these are my favorites. She did a great job.
That's such a nice touch. And I remember how hungry I was after your story time. I remember that well. And speaking of hungry, it is time for our very special surprise. So panelists, if you have your treat, you may go get it now. I'm going to run to the freezer really fast. Don't worry, I have a tiny apartment. It won't take me long. All right, friends, I'm back as promised. It is very small in here. My dog thinks this is for her. It is not for you. We are going to celebrate these book birthdays with a very special treat of singing happy birthday to our books. I am just going to get my candles lit here. Panelists, you are way ahead of me. You already got everything lit and ready to go. My goodness. Audience members, if you would like to unmute at this time and help us sing happy birthday, you are more than welcome to do so. I apologize in advance for my singing voice. On the count of three, friends, we will sing happy birthday, dear books. 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy
Happy
birthday.
Happy birthday to you. Pretend candle.
That was so amazing. Thank you all so much for being here today. We so appreciate working with SCBWI, with Rondi for helping me coordinate everything. This event would not have been possible without that help. Please let me just tell you.
Thank you, Rondi. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rondi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
I love the backgrounds. I love all your decor, you know. And thank you, Lauren. You're a wonderful MC. It was wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank
Lauren.
you so much. Thank you for celebrating your books, for sharing them with us in our communities, for supporting our store. Ava has dropped those links, the link in the chat to buy the book. If you did not get a chance to get any of these books that you saw today on the panel, you can click on that link and do so there. If you pre-ordered your book, a Second Star staff member will reach out to you and let you know when it's ready for pickup, when it's been shipped. We got lots of options these days. Gotta be flexible. Can't stay still anymore. So as I mentioned before, my name is Lauren from Second Star to the Right in Denver, Colorado. Thank you so much to all of our panelists, to SCBWI, to our audience for celebrating with us. Have a beautiful day and happy book birthday, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
Thank you.